missed you.
Good morning, my name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this morning's zoning application. We have a request to rezone property to residential plan development and commercial plan development. The property is located in North Fort Myers. All testimony and evidence I accept during these hearings must be taken in under oath. So at the conclusion of my remarks, I will administer the oath to everyone in the room. For those of you who are not familiar with this process, the team that is representing the property owner will go first. They will present the request. Their testimony may include testimony from various experts on different aspects of the development, including environmental, water management, traffic generation, things of this nature. At the conclusion of their presentation, the county planner who reviewed the application and prepared the staff report will also make a presentation. I may have questions of either one of these parties, and at the conclusion of staff's presentation, I will open up the floor to members of the public. If you are here from the public, I urge you to fill out the public participation form that is by the door on the side of this room. And if you provide your email address, you will receive a copy of my recommendation. While I take in all the testimony and evidence in this matter, I am not the final decision maker. That will be the Board of County Commissioners, which will be held at a subsequent hearing. If you desire the opportunity to address the Board of County Commissioners on this request, you must enter comments, testimony, or evidence into the record at this level. You may speak as long as you like. I ask that you share any specific concerns that you have and ask any questions you may have. That gives us an opportunity to clarify issues maybe that you did not understand, and you give us the opportunity to perhaps impose further conditions to address concerns that are not already addressed through conditioning. My recommendation in this case will probably come out in 2 to 3 weeks, and then it'll be scheduled before the Board of County Commissioners. All right, for anyone who plans to put in testimony or evidence in the record, I ask that you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you enter into the record will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I am ready to begin. I'm ready to
If
begin.
the gentleman wants to speak, he didn't raise his hand.
This is the time for me to speak from the podium?
No, you were probably preoccupied filling out the form.
Okay.
You speak after the
I'm
applicant.
considered evidence? Is that what you're saying?
If you're going to put in testimony or evidence into the record, so if you're going to speak at the podium regarding any questions or concerns you have, you should raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence that you place into the record will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm ready to begin. Jennifer?
And there's a package that Jennifer will walk you through that I put on your desk.
Good morning. The package that you received, it is 2 copies of the PowerPoint presentation. Yes. 2 copies of the PowerPoint presentation, my updated resume, and then 2 copies of the master concept plan, 2 different sizes, a 24 by 36 and an 11 by 17.
Okay, hang on. PowerPoint will be applicant exhibit 2. The 48-hour letter was applicant exhibit 1. Jennifer Sapin updated resume is applicant exhibit 2. And then we've got 2 copies of the master concept plan. And is this a different date than was with the staff report, right?
Correct. That's the 48-hour letter. It's got an updated,
And did you update both pages of the staff report?
both pages.
One was open space and one was,
Yes. The bottom of both pages, the master concept plan should have revision date
yes,
2/6/26.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Good morning. With us today, we have Neil Montgomery, Pabis Law Firm, myself, Jennifer Sapin. I am an AICP certified land planner. I've been accepted as an expert witness in this forum before, but it has been a couple years. In that time, I have been I'm on both the LDCAC and the LPA, so I asked to be accepted as an expert witness in the Land Development Code and the Lee County Comprehensive Plan.
Yes, please proceed.
Also with me is Drew Fitzgerald, who will go over the engineering aspects of the project. Reed Fellows is here for TR Transportation to talk about transportation. And Barrett Seitzkel is here with Bear Paws to talk about environmental. So the project is located in North Fort Myers, north of the river, between Old 41 and New 41 on the south side of Littleton Road. It's 4 miles from downtown Fort Myers and 6.5 miles from I-75. It is an infill project, and as such, the commercial portion of the project is consistent with policy 6.1.7. The project has been vacant for a long time. It does have a history of homeless encampments. There's been several fires in the area. When installing the signs, I did talk to a neighboring business owner who was looking forward to this for that reason, to take away that problem with the consistent homelessness and the fires that have occurred in that area. The project is near several services consistent with policies 2.2.1 and 5.1.3. There are 3 fire stations within 4 miles of the project. The Lee County Sheriff Office is just under 2 miles. There's 7 elementary schools within 5 miles, 3 middle schools within 5 miles, and 4 high schools within 5 miles. The Lee Memorial Hospital is just under 5 miles, and there's a Lee Tran stop just to the northwest of the site at 41 and Littleton Avenue. That's less than a mile away. Public facilities, the North Fort Myers Recreation Center and the community park is just right next to it and a little bit to the south. Shopping and employment is also very close. Merchants Crossing with Home Depot behind it is within a mile, and Walmart Supercenter is to the south within 1 mile. So again, an infill site. The future land use of the project and most of the surrounding area is central urban. To the south, you see 2 different future land use categories. The commercial along Old 41 is intensive development, and the Frisbee Golf Course is public facilities. The uses on the north side of Littleton Road are mostly light industrial. There's a church there that has residential zoning, and there's light industrial to the northwest. South of the project is very different use, single family and mobile home, and then there's mobile homes to the east. Existing zonings are shown here. The subject site is divided into C2 and C1A categories. You can see from the map on the bottom, the CPD is entirely within the C2 category. We're rezoning, the acreages are shown here, almost 34 acres of C1A and 100 acres of C2. It's being rezoned to 25 acres CPD and almost 109 acres of RPD. The CPD request is for 250,000 square foot of light industrial, which could be converted to 150,000 square foot of light industrial with 20,900 of retail. Also with the CPD, we're permitting 360 ALF beds, which converts to 60 density units. The RPD request is for 600 residential units with a maximum of 400 single family units. I want to do something a little different. Rather than showing you the site plan and then explaining how it fits in with the surrounding area, I'm going to walk you through how we developed this site plan. I'm going to use this graphic here. You'll see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the steps that we went through. With us today there are the existing property owners and the future property owners. The current property owner wants to retain the commercial area and is selling the remaining area, the remaining RPD, to a residential developer. So the commercial developer knew that they wanted a commercial tract around 25 acres. So the first step was to figure out where to put that. When looking at the surrounding area, the intense light industrial uses to the north and northwest were the very first things that we looked at and where we placed the CPD. To the northwest, the map here with the red star, it's Littleton Road Plaza. You can see a photo of it here. There are absolutely no buffers. There's not a single tree or bush on the site, and it has warehousing, auto repair, manufacturing. Similar on the north side of Littleton Road, there's a storage. This is Cube Smart Self-Storage, very long, 400-foot long storage buildings. They have outdoor boat and RV storage, again, no buffers. So this is an appropriate place, we thought, to put the CPD. The CPD, then from the CPD to the RPD, we wanted to create a transition between those two zoning districts. So we provided a green belt where the twos are shown here. The green belt consists of water management, preserve, and buffers, and is 7 acres in total. So this protects the RPD from being impacted by the commercial uses, which is consistent with policy 6.1.4. The next step, 3, going to the southern end of the property, we wanted to protect those existing single-family uses, so we are proposing only single-family and two-family attached along that line. Currently, the C2 zoning district would allow multifamily. So by this RPD, we are increasing the compatibility, further protecting that residential consistent with policy 5.1.5. Step 4, now we're looking at around the Frisbee Golf and around the DOT detention pond that's up in the northeast corner. We wanted to put single-family uses against those open space uses. And it amenitizes those residential views. We surrounded the residential views around the conservation easement and the Frisbee Golf and to the pond. And then we also, in area 4C, along that finger along Old 41, that is in the commercial the commercial corridor, which single family does not allow. They're not allowed in the commercial corridor, so we only are proposing multifamily. But by putting residential there, we are compatible with the mobile home on the other side of the road. Step 5, with the preserve in the transition greenbelt and the preserve in the existing conservation easement, the remaining indigenous that was required, we designated that in the southwest corner because there are really large hardwood, mixed hardwoods there. That'll create a great buffer to the future CPD. And then we also propose residential uses where the 6 is shown here. That's a landscape buffer easement that exists today against the future CPD. There are 2 areas where the back of residential will view Littleton Road or a commercial. So we did a design where 7A is shown here. The dead-end streets make it so only very few homes back up against Littleton Road. Those dead-end streets will also allow for pedestrian access to Littleton. And then with majority of the views 4B looking at the pond or at the proposed lake on the other side. And then 7B, that's the only instance where the residential abuts commercial. And the photos there. And that, very different than on Littleton Road where there was no buffers. That business there, Scotty's shown here, it's well buffered, well maintained. So it's a less intense, more favorable view for the residential. That brings us then to the master concept plan you see here. And getting those components in place, the rest of the plan just really kind of filled itself out. The 25-acre CPD is the northwest corner along Littleton with the remaining 109 acres. The RPD. And this transition doesn't happen only within our project, it creates a transition for the community where we have pretty intense light industrial on Littleton and then single family to the south. This project creates a transition to those residents. So the RPD and CBD will function separately. Their accesses are separately. The only pedestrian connection that will be between them is that what is provided along Littleton Road or other off-site sidewalks. The project meets and exceeds all landscape buffers. There's single family and 2 family along southern border, like we said. The shaded area, it's kind of a purple shaded area near the conservation easement. That's where lots will be larger and no open space is required. Single family lots will have to be at least 6,500 square foot and 2 family attached at least 3,750 square foot. There are 5 access points for the projects. Numbers 1 and 2 provide access for the RPD, and that's on each 41. Access points 3 through 5 provide access for the CPD. I wanted to point out access point number 1 will have a stub out to the north and the south that will connect to the Littleton Center CPD, which is on either side of the access road. And at all of these access points, there will be pedestrian connections to the existing sidewalks.
Are there existing sidewalks on 41 there
Yes.
and also on Littleton?
Yes.
On the north side though, right?
south side.
It is on the south side,
Yeah.
okay. I'm gonna have to go back out there, because I didn't notice that.
We provided an alternate layout for the CPD. There's a wide range of uses. And the main plan kind of shows a light industrial layout, but we wanted to show an alternate layout. This would, what we would expect an ALF or a hotel site to look like, and it has out parcels along Littleton Road. So this would allow for that 360 beds, and that conversion of 6 people per dwelling unit is allowed by 34-14933. So the commercial out parcels along Littleton Road, you can see the 3 access points remain the same as the other layout. The lakes and the buffers are all the same as the other layout. There are no deviations requested for the commercial area, and meeting the open space and buffering, the commercial area is consistent with policy 6.1.6. There's a lot on here. I just wanted to get one slide that has all of the uses. But I also wanted to point out, you can see several uses have notes attached to them. This is a full list of all of those notes, and it depends on the use, what type of a condition. For example, outdoor storage within an opaque fence or wall for certain uses. To try to make sense of all those notes, I created a couple tables. This first table are light industrial uses that we are proposing that are allowed in the CPD district. So LDC 34-934 has certain light industrial uses that are allowed in the CPD. We have added these notes to each of the uses. For example, manufacturing of apparel products will be within fully enclosed building and 100-foot setback to residential. So all these various conditions, we have worked with staff through these, and we believe this protects the future RPD from any encroachment of noise and lights.
Okay, so what is the check mark for dairy products?
For dairy,
It says 5, what does that say?
5, combined intensity not to exceed 50,000 square foot. So that is note 5. Yeah, the combined intensity of uses. I will get to that one. This slide is light industrial uses that are allowed in the C2 district, so the current zoning district, and then the special restrictions that we've added on them. Most of these notes, these special restrictions, are in the back of table 34-844 for the use table of C2. Some, however, we have added in addition along as we've gone through a review. Now, there are 2 uses, manufacturing of dairy and the cold warehousing. Those 2 uses that we are proposing are not allowed in the CPD district. However, LDC 34-938 allows commissioners to approve light industrial uses that aren't in the CPD district, so long as the sum of those uses do not exceed 50,000 square foot. So that's where that limitation of those 2, so the manufacturing, dairy, and cold storage, the 2 combined could not exceed 50,000 square foot.
And staff is recommending approval of that.
That's correct. For the RPD, on the left here, these are the proposed property development regulations. You will see that there's 2 sizes of single family and 2 family attached. That is for the open space and not open space required. For the 2 family attached, I also want to point out, well, and a single family, that it's a maximum of 45% lot coverage for that no open space to apply as well. We have proposed 4 different residential uses and the accessory uses that are pretty typical with residential by providing a range of residential uses. This is consistent with policy 135-19 by providing a mix of housing types throughout the county. In this area, you saw from the aerial, there's a lot of mobile homes. So the townhomes and single family will provide something that is different for this area. The project is in a few overlays. First, it is in the Neighborhood Center 3. That's part of the North Fort Myers plan. That's shown on the left. It's centered on Littleton Road. The Neighborhood Center is just under 250 acres. The CPD is entirely within that center, but only less than half of the RPD is within the center. That Neighborhood Center, they do expect moderate to high density in town centers and commercial uses, so we're consistent with 30.2.1. The A portion of the project is also in the mixed-use overlay. You see on the right, it's just that little access parcel that goes to 41. It's 1.3 acres in the mixed-use overlay. And then all of that neighboring Littleton Center is in that overlay. The open space gets tricky because neighborhood 3 and mixed-use overlay only require 20% open space. Standard open space is 40%. And then the area where we are not, no open space is required for those larger lots. And we have gone back and forth with staff. This is the new table that you got in the 48-hour letter. It's a little bit cleaner, a little less complicated than I first did it. So I appreciate staff helping me get that cleaned up. So the required open space is just under 30 acres and the indigenous is just under 15 acres. Provided indigenous, it meets the requirements of the general open space, the neighborhood center, and the mixed-use overlay. The preserves are shown on the bottom left here. Most of them, or a lot of them, qualify for incentive credits due to their size, acreage, and in width. And then there's an additional 10% of incentive credit due to proximity to the Frisbee Golf or along the south. There's a road along the southern boundary, San Jose Street, so you get an additional 10%. Policy 77.3.2 seeks to have large open space areas of adequate widths to allow for continued viability of native trees. By having these large preserve, it meets that, that policy. And policy 123.1.1, as you can see, the wetlands are integrated into the preserve with the uplands.
Is the project utilizing those incentives?
Yes. Yeah, and in the table there, you can see there's some 125, 135 for E. So E would be the 125% by size, and then the additional 10% to get to 135 by being next to the Frisbee Golf. Density, again, we're in the central urban, allows 10 units per acre. We have just under 30 acres, or 27.9 acres of wetland impacts. The tables here calculate 10 units per acre for the preserved wetlands and uplands, and then 1 to 20 for the impacted wetlands. You can see the RPD requested density of 600 is less than the allowed 812. The CPD, the requested 60, is less than the allowed 193. Which brings the densities consistent with 1.1.3 and 1.5.1. So the commercial corridor is another overlay that we're in. But the commercial corridor, it's not a map, it just describes which roads. So there's 5 roads in North Fort Myers that are considered corridor roads by LDC 33-1566. So the CPD, so it applies to all commercially zoned properties with frontage on. It doesn't have frontage on either one of the 41s. Littleton Road is not a corridor. Or developed in conjunction with. They won't be developed in conjunction with one another. The timings are different. The access points are different. The ERP, which is under review or soon to be approved, shows the CPD as future development. A development order has been applied for the RPD, but not for the CPD yet. Each zoning district will have their own maintenance entity to take care of their separate water management, their separate indigenous. Open space and indigenous has been divided so that development orders can be reviewed independently. However, we do recognize the 41 corridor as being important to North Fort Myers, so I did want to point out that the Littleton Center CPD will meet the intent of that corridor. It's 270 feet deep, 21 acres. It runs along the entirety of 41 here. We do share access with it, and their zoning resolution is Z08007, and they did not request any deviations from the North Fort Myers design standards. So that will bring that corridor that the North Fort Myers residents are expecting. Moving into deviations. The first deviation is for a reduced excavation setback. This is in the northeast corner. This is to allow a reduction from the 50-foot required to the FDOT pond to reduce it to 30 feet. The 30 feet consists of a 10-foot wide type A buffer with 5 trees per 100 linear feet and the 20-foot lake maintenance easement. We're widening that type A buffer from 5 to 10 feet That is, we've kind of done that standardly recently to allow, if in the future residents put up a fence, there will still allow room for landscaping on the outside of it, as required by code. And expanding the lake to its full potential creates more suitable fill on site, reducing the number of trucks on surrounding roadways. And the proposed deviation will enhance the development and will not be a detriment to public interest. Deviation 2 is essentially the same deviation, but instead of abutting the FDOT pond, it's where it abuts Old 41. And it's the same benefits and the same lack of detrimental effect. Deviations 3, 4, and 5 are to allow the little dead ends and to measure the lots. 150 feet is allowed, dead ends are allowed by Florida Fire Prevention Code. Aerial in the top right is an example of where we have done that before, and here are some photos of that same. This is Camden Square, Plantation 37, little dead end. These are popular, they sell for premium, and deviations have been granted without having any negative effects. And it reduces the need for roadways. Those cul-de-sacs eat up quite a bit of land. Deviation 6 is to move the C or F buffer required for the CPD. Since we know that lake is going to be there as a transition, we wanted to have the buffer closer to the commercial use rather than between the lake and the homes. It'll be easier for the CPD to maintain the buffer in this way because it'll be closer to the use. Putting the trees and the vegetation closer to the vehicle use area will provide more shade over there, helping for heat island effect. But really the main driving force for it was to allow the RPD to have an unobstructed view to the lake. And the noise impacts from the CPD will be lessened by having the trees closer to those uses. Because the deviation relocates the buffer and does not reduce the plantings, approval will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare. Deviation 7 is to intersection separation. 330 is required. We're applying it in two different instances. Between Aluminum Road and between the CubeSmart storage access. The proposed accesses align with the existing accesses. We chose the furthest east and furthest west as possible, and then one in the middle.
It doesn't meet intersection separation, but it is across from existing driveways.
That's correct.
All right, we can move on.
Staff is recommending approval. Deviation 8, we had some notes in this in the 48-hour letter. We worked through with staff after the staff report. Staff was asking that we indicate where a preserve is less than 100 feet wide, indicate where those type B buffer trees would be. So you see there's 3 locations where those buffer trees would be: to the north of the Frisbee Gulf, and then on the south there's 2 areas where that preserve gets less than 100 feet, and there's not a lot of trees in some of those areas after the exotic vegetation's been moved. So those trees will just kind of help to protect the residences. Do you have any questions for me?
I do have a question. I don't know if I brought it in here. Yeah, it has to do with the wording of 2 deviations, I believe. Okay. All right, first it's deviation 6. So to locate the landscape buffer along the eastern boundary of the CPD, located to the east, to the west of the proposed lake. That's very confusing wording to me. I need you to go over that again so we can figure out how that needs to be rewritten. Locate the landscape buffer along the eastern boundary of the CPD. You're basically saying you want to move the buffer from the property line between the CPD and the RPD to the project side of the lake.
Correct.
Right? Okay, and then I had a struggle also with deviation 7 wording. Okay, yeah, now that you explain that, I know how to rewrite that, so it's clearer. Okay. And then, I was reading through the staff report and all the attachments, and I noticed that the school district is anticipating 149 students to be generated from the RPD. So I was wondering if you can show me on the master concept plan where we've provided for bus stop loading and unloading outside the right-of-way.
Plan. We have not provided a designated area. However, there is an open space that it's not being utilized that right below the 2.
Could you walk up to the screen and point to it? So that's where it's gonna be?
That's where an open space area it could be. We don't know where the school is coming from yet.
All right, so I just want you to know where I'm coming from, and I'm gonna give you an opportunity to update your master concept plan, or there's gonna be a condition, because there's plan policies and LDC provisions that require this to be addressed. And I'd like to see that you've met the standard where there's safe pedestrian and bicycle access to a school stop, bus stop that is outside of a right-of-way. Okay. Yeah, the waiting area has to be outside the road right-of-way.
Okay.
So I can just put a condition in there, and then when you put the finer points on the development order site plan, you can address it then, however best suits the project. Or if you want to designate it before it goes to the board, you can give me an updated master concept plan. This is up to you. I don't see why it couldn't wait till your development order application, but I leave this to you.
Yeah, and the development order is under review right now. We've received 1 comment letter.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you know this condition's coming at you. I put it in, and so does Amanda, almost every residential project, so,
Understood?
okay. And then the other question is the entire residential community, is your plan for them to access the bus on Old 41? Or is it gonna be necessary to provide a bus stop, school bus stop waiting area on 41? I just leave that to your consideration, because it's a big project.
Understood.
All right,
Thank you.
let me just check my other notes to be sure. All right, so you said the bicycle pedestrian connection to the commercial center, which is probably gonna be less relevant if you go the light industrial route rather than the commercial light industrial, was in the northeast section. There, you indicated there was gonna be access, pedestrian access to Littleton Road.
Yes.
So where is that exactly on the site plan? Is that these little stars?
Yes, yeah, all the stars are access points, pedestrian access points.
All right. All right, I had some questions regarding the manufacturing, but I think you explained that well. That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Drew Fitzgerald. I'm with Respect Company. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've been practicing in Southwest Florida for 30 years. I've been accepted as an expert in civil engineering and would ask if I could be accepted today.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So my testimony will be addressing the availability of utility service and stormwater management. Before I get into that, it may be better with the bus stop, rather than designating a location, is do it as a condition where we can coordinate with the school.
Sure.
Or the school board. So For utility service, this property is located in a part of Lee County where water and sewer are provided by two different utility companies. We're located in the Lee County utility service area for water. We have received a letter of availability from Lee County Utilities, and we have water lines shown in this map. Pointer? Okay. One along US 41, one along Business 41, and then what's not shown on the map is there is a water line along Littleton Road as well.
Okay.
So there's 3 points
So
of
the
connection.
infrastructure's in place.
Correct. For sewer service, we're located in the Florida Governmental Utility Authority service area. We do have a letter of availability that was on this page here for sewer service. We're also abutting to a reuse line on Littleton Road. So we're going to be designing the project to receive reuse from FGUA. We have a force main, 16-inch force main along Littleton Road and an 8-inch force main along 41. So all the infrastructure for sewer service is available as well.
All right, so the infrastructure's in place for water, sewer, and there's also a reuse line.
Mm-hmm. Correct, yes. Okay. With stormwater management, so the property was permitted by Lee County and South Florida Water Management District in 2007 as a multifamily development. The ERP was kept alive with emergency extensions. We filed for a modification to the ERP in 2025, and we're anticipating receiving an approval for it this month. The way the system is designed, the RPD and CPD properties are served by separate basins. Both basins have been designed to meet the state water quality standards. The RPD uses interconnected lakes that outfall to San Jose Street ditch. We have an arrow on the map that shows where the outfall location is, and then there's the green lines on that map that designate where the ditches are within that area. It ultimately flows south before it crosses over 41, and then gets into the creek.
Okay, so it's gonna go south to your property line and then west?
Yeah, it comes here, goes west. This ditch continues to the south before right around Merchants Crossing. It crosses over 41, and then it crosses over that's Pine Island. It crosses over Pine Island and then gets into Hancock Creek.
Hancock Creek?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the CPD uses vegetated pretreatment areas and a lake that outfalls to Littleton Road, and we showed the arrow where that outfall will be. And you can see there's a ditch along Littleton Road that then connects to 41 and then commingles with the RPD drainage in the southwest corner in the same ditch.
So that's going north, east, and then south.
This will come into the ditch west down here,
Right.
and then this is where they'll commingle.
Okay, so the residential area is going into lakes, interconnected lakes, and then out. The commercial is wet and dry detention.
Correct.
Lake out.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And that concludes my testimony. I can answer any other questions if you have any.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Reed Fellows with TR Transportation Consultants. I've been practicing traffic and transportation in Southwest Florida for approximately 25 years. I have testified before this body before. I have been sworn. I've been admitted as an expert in this forum as well, and I ask that I am admitted as such today.
Yes, please proceed.
My presentation is intended to be quite brief, but I can go into any details that you like. Our firm conducted the traffic study pursuant to the county guidelines for the rezoning applications. The access was already discussed. Access to the county roadway is via 3 access points on Littleton Road. And then we also have access onto Business 41 and US 41. Our study analyzed the future traffic conditions of the surrounding roadways, including the trips anticipated for this site in the full build-out condition. And the results of the study concluded that all adjacent roadways and access points operate at or better than the level of service criteria set out by the county in the future traffic condition, when in this case is 2030. Staff has reviewed our report and is in agreement with our conclusions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Barrett Stayskill, Bear Paws Environmental Consulting. I have been previously tendered as an expert in wetland and wildlife ecology.
Proceed.
So as Jen and Drew have said, there's been numerous permits that have been obtained by the county and the state for this project. Updated surveys have been done. We should get the ERP permit soon. And there were no species identified during the latest survey under the current development footprint. An updated survey will be provided prior to DO issuance. There have been a few gopher tortoise that have been relocated off-site previously under the original application. Those were done by Dex Bender and Atwell. Currently, we have our preserve areas, as Jen also discussed. Upland and wetland and indigenous preserves cover over 12 acres of the property.
So when you did your site visit, you didn't see any evidence of gopher tortoises?
In some of the preserve areas there were, but none in the development footprint currently. An updated one will be done because the silt fences aren't all to standard current quality right now, but per our, I think it was our comment in our DO, we do have to update that survey, so that will be done prior to DO issuance. But we don't have any in the development footprint
Okay,
currently.
where is this eagle nest?
So, the eagle, this is the ongoing thing. There's eagle's nest, there's a cell tower right here. There is no eagle's nest. There has not been an eagle's nest since 22. The previous owners obtained a take permit for the nest. The nest actually it wasn't the previous owners, I take that back. I think it was the cell tower. Somebody got a permit for the nest was removed. It has not been active since 22. It's still not active. We could declare abandonment right now. After this year, if there's no nest built, it will be declared lost. So the nest will be lost.
Was the nest on your property or
No, ma'am.
property
It's
adjacent?
adjacent to the property to the north. It was in the cell tower.
So you were in the circle of doom?
Yes, ma'am. That would be it. So we have gone, we still did modify our bald eagle management plan, went to E-Tech with it, and it was approved.
All right, so,
Even though there is no nest.
so that's, you have to like not build during certain times of the year or
Yeah,
something like that?
well, if there was activity, nest activity, but there
Right.
is no nest activity. So we still have to, under the guidelines, we have to adhere to these buffers and landscape buffers and so on and so forth, and development footprints within certain areas, certain times of the year. But if they do not come back this year, it'll be declared lost and abandoned. So there
Okay.
will be no more management plan required. And that's all I've got. Thank you, ma'am.
Jennifer Sapin for the record. And I agree with the findings and conclusions in the staff report. In my professional opinion, this project is consistent with the Land Development Code, the Lee County Comprehensive Plan goals and policies. The requested deviations are a benefit to the proposed development, and approval of the deviations will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare. We have proposed special conditions for certain uses, bringing it consistent with the Lee Plan and the Land Development Code, and the infrastructure is in place to support the requested density and intensity. So with that, I think we are done, unless you have anything for us.
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you.
And just one thing. Would you confirm that deviation 6 pertaining to buffers, it says deviation approved subject to landscape buffer D1A. Is that intended to be C1A or 3? I'm trying to figure out what that refers to. D1A. Is that supposed to be C1A? It's deviation 6, and it's the deviation approved subject to landscape buffer. And I couldn't find a D1A, so I'm just requesting clarification on that, please. Landscape buffers appear to be generally addressed under 3C,
I agree, you're right.
so that should be C1A, 3.C.1A.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready for staff. Just 1 minute here. I'm ready.
Before we get started, I'd like to provide a copy of staff's presentation for the record.
This will be Staff Exhibit 3. Staff Exhibit 1 is the staff report. Staff Exhibit 2 is the 48-hour letter. And Staff Exhibit 3 is staff's PowerPoint.
For the record, my name is Brianna Schrader. I'm a planner with the zoning section of community development. I have previously been qualified as expert witness in the Lee County Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan and wish to do so again today.
Yes.
Before we get started, staff would like to acknowledge that the applicant's presentation did a great job analyzing the request and did cover most of what staff was going to present today, so the presentation might be a little brief, but we'll cover some areas staff would like to cover. So today's request is a major plan development rezone by Sapin Site Planning on behalf of property owner Uniland Company to rezone about 134 acres of land from commercial, specifically within the C1A and C2 zoning districts, and to commercial plan development and residential plan development to allow up to 250,000 square feet of light industrial uses or 150,000 square feet of light industrial uses and 20,900 square feet of commercial uses on about 25 acres of land, and 600 residential dwelling units with a maximum of 400 single-family detached dwelling units on about 109 acres of land. Staff recommends approval of the request and deviations with conditions. As stated before, the current zoning is commercial, which is C1A and C2, and is within the central urban future land use category. The current zoning district and approximate acreage for each property are provided here. Moving forward, staff will be presenting the project as one whole, but at least wanted to provide some sort of breakdown in this for the record. When combined, the properties are located east of North Cleveland Avenue, south of Littleton Road, and west of North Tamiami Trail. The applicant did already provide a breakdown, but the property is within the Norfolk Myers Community Plan area and Neighborhood Center 3. A portion of the property, as shown on the screen, is in the mixed-use overlay, as well as here's a map showing where the Neighborhood Center 3 is located. In 2007, a development order was issued for the construction of a surface water management system to support future development of residential and commercial tracts. Following this, in 2008, a vacation of easement was approved to vacate the remaining platted roadway easements. Following this, 2 vegetation removal permits were issued for soil boring and clearing the properties. VEG 2024-00049 is still active and is pending inspections, while permit VEG 2024-00052 has been closed issued. The properties are primarily cleared, with areas identified as reserve areas remaining untouched. And as discussed, there is currently a development order in review and proposes to unify 108 acres out of the 134 acres of land for construction of infrastructure to serve the proposed residential development envisioned by this request. Due to the unique shape of the property, staff had put together sort of a guide to help show what is being discussed. On this slide is everything to the north is above the blue line. Properties across from Littleton Road are primarily zoned commercial, apart from one property being zoned residential and another zoned agricultural to the northeast. Lee County records indicate that the area is primarily developed with the exception of 2 properties, and the properties located across from Littleton Road have historically been utilized for various commercial and light industrial uses. The properties abutting the subject property are zoned commercial and commercial plan development. These properties are primarily developed with a commercial plaza known as Littleton Road Plaza and an office and storage location for CenturyLink. The property zoned commercial plan development is currently vacant, and these properties are all within the central urban future land use category. Properties to the south of the blue line are within the Pomona Park subdivision and are zoned residential, specifically RS1 and TFC2, and mobile home residential, more specifically MH1. This subdivision is primarily developed with some lots that are vacant. Property to the southwest is zoned commercial plan development and is undeveloped. These properties are within the central urban future land use category. Properties to the southeast are zoned commercial, specifically CC and C1A, and are primarily developed. These properties are all within the intensive development future land use category. The property zoned commercial, specifically C2, which is located in the area the blue line is pointing to, is developed with the Norfolk Myers Recreation Center and Park, including a Frisbee golf course located closest to the proposed project. A conservation easement, which is what the blue arrow is pointing to, is located on the Norfolk Myers Rec Center and Community Park property, which directly abuts the proposed residential plan development. This property is within the public facilities future land use category. Property to the east is separated by North Tamiami Trail, is known as Buccaneer Estates subdivision, which has been developed and is zoned residential mobile home, more specifically MH2, and is within the central urban future land use category. Properties further west are separated by North Cleveland Avenue, are zoned commercial, specifically C1A, and residential plan development. The commercial properties are currently developed as a convenience food and beverage store and a medical office. These properties are within the central urban future land use category. A 48-hour letter was submitted by staff addressing the changes to the conditions document and the updated master concept plan provided by the applicant. These changes addresses the outstanding issue section of the published staff report and corrected a couple of minor issues regarding a landscape buffer and a discrepancy with availability of urban services, more specifically the water and sewer availability. Staff essentially had put Lee County Utilities can cover both water sewer when it actually is Lee County Utilities can only handle, I believe, the potable water, and FGUA handles the sanitary sewer. So that was acknowledged in the 48-hour letter. Provided here is the revised master concept plan that was submitted in the 48-hour letter. As stated earlier, these issues were to update the landscape buffers to meet what is required in LDC section 10-416, and to update the open space and indigenous open space requirements and the tables that are provided on the second page of the MCP.
So just if we can pause here for a minute, I'm looking at the green shading in the southeast, no, you were on the right slide.
Oh, my apologies.
Southeast section of the MCP. So was it your testimony that this area of indigenous is abutting an existing indigenous area on the adjacent park property?
It's unique. So my testimony is it's abutting what is a conservation area sort of to the north, like right here.
Right.
And then the rec center, which is being utilized as a Frisbee golf course.
I'm just trying to determine if this northernmost piece here is just a continuation of that system. I'm not clear on what these different designations are.
The conservation easement essentially within the preserve area, because there is a conservation easement that's dedicated to this development, and then the Norfolk Myers Rec Center has a conservation easement dedicated to their property. I'm not sure if at one point they were combined, but it may be a continuation of the two.
It's abutting it in any.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Apologies, the site is quite unique. As provided before, the applicant has provided an alternative master concept plan for the CPD to include assisted living facility or hotel buildings. Staff is going to be recommending a condition to approve the assisted living facility, or more or less it's on the schedule of uses for the CPD, but because the traffic impact statement does not discuss the assisted living facility, staff is recommending condition to approve it through the administrative approval process.
Okay.
The applicant, staff agrees with the applicant with the availability of urban services, so we'll not go too much into detail on this. With regards to the school district, provided on this slide is a list of schools within the 5 miles of the proposed development. The School District of Lee County has provided a letter that has determined that the proposed residential development will negatively impact school concurrency, specifically at the middle school level, and a statement of availability cannot be provided. Staff had addressed this in the staff report, but we also wanted to put on the record that although the Lee County School District has identified a capacity issue, Lee Plan Policy 68.2.3 and LDC Section 2-46J establishes that mitigation options will be discussed at the time of development order. LDC Section 34-935 establishes the property development regulations for each planned development zoning district. The proposed property development regulations provides the applicant, provided here, meets LDC Section 34-935 and LDC Section 34-695 for the residential plan development, and LDC Section 34-935 for the commercial plan development. In addition to this, as provided earlier, the applicant is providing special enhanced setbacks for specific uses for the CPD, which are addressed in the code and also connect to the special regulations for particular uses as well. Shown on this screen are the proposed uses for the residential plan development. These uses are consistent with LDC Section 34-934, which establishes the use regulations for plan developments. The plan development parameters are also provided on the screen, which are 600 residential dwelling units with a maximum of 400 single-family detached dwelling units. The applicant had provided all the proposed uses for the commercial plan development in their presentation, but due to the wide variety, staff did not on here, but did provide the light industrial uses that are permitted by right in the CP district and the uses that will require an administrative approval before they can actually operate at this location, which is the assisted living facility and the timeshare units. All the uses, aside from two that will be discussed shortly, are permitted by right in LDC section 34 dash, I believe it's, well, the same one, I don't have it written down.
934, 935, 9, like that.
Thank you. As the applicant stated earlier, these two uses provided on the screen, cold storage warehouse and processing plant, including pre-cooling and manufacturing of dairy products, are not approved on the scheduled or on the CPD uses within the code, but can be approved by the Board of County Commissioners. The applicant does meet the standards in LDC section 34-938A, and staff does recommend approval of these uses.
Okay, so the board is going to need to make a finding at the final hearing, I guess, that these uses are permissible in this particular CPD, is what I'm gathering from these sections of the code.
Correct.
So you need to make sure that when you present this case to them, that they need to include that in their resolution.
Correct. Okay. The applicant did a great job going through the deviations, so staff won't go into much detail on these deviations, but we'll go into detail on deviation 8, since it is a modification being recommended by staff. The original request was to not provide any sort of landscape buffering per a code section in the Norfolk Mars commercial corridor, but as discussed in today's hearing, the property will no longer need to meet the code standards in the commercial corridor. However, staff is recommending a modification to the deviation request. The reason behind staff suggesting a modification to the deviation is due to the plant community within the conservation easement on the subject property, located to the southeast, having been identified on the flux map as Pine Flatwoods, which is a wet prairie that consists of grass and shrubs, primarily with scattered pine, and is a plant community subject to regular fire intervals. The recommended modification to this deviation will allow the existing native shrubs and grass habitat to meet the double standard hedgerow standard of the Type B buffer and conditions 5 trees per 100 linear feet to be proposed along the perimeter of the on-site indigenous preserve to provide on-site compatibility. LDC section 10-415B1C establishes a 20-foot building setback from indigenous native vegetation and trees within a preserve area. For indigenous plant communities subject to fire, such as Pine Flatwoods, a 30-foot building setback is required for fire protection. To ensure visual compatibility between the proposed residential neighborhood and the existing neighboring recreation park, staff is recommending approval of this deviation to provide a modified Type B buffer containing 5 trees per 100 linear feet in areas that are less than 100 feet in width. This deviation will provide an enhanced visual buffer between the proposed development and the recreational park while also protecting the existing vegetation identified on the flux map. And these are the areas shown on here. The next bit of my slides are going to be about the Lee plan analysis. The applicant did a great job going through them, but staff will touch on some Lee plan policies that, for like example, the commercial plan development that we like to put on the record. Let's see. Staff is in agreement with the applicant's testimony for policy 1.1.3 and 1.1.5. Staff will also like to put on the record that the request for density and how many units is about 344 units less than what is allowed, and is in agreement with the applicant's testimony. Staff is in agreement with lead plan objective 2.2, 2.21, and 5.1.3 with the applicant's testimony. Staff would like to add that the project also meets lead plan policy 5.1.2, which prohibits residential development where physical constraints or hazards exist that may endanger the residential community. Based on the applicant's analysis and testimony, staff feels the project meets the lead plan policy. Let's see. To permit orderly and well-planned commercial development at appropriate locations within Lee County, Goal 6 and Objective 6.1 of the lead plan establishes policies that require the applicant to meet design standards for commercial development. Lead plan policies 6.1.1, 6.1.3, 6.1.4, and 6.1.6 establish that commercial development must provide appropriate and adequate open space, buffering, and screening to provide visual relief in parking areas, to blend with the character of the existing and proposed surrounding uses, and ensure that the commercial design protects the traffic carrying capacity. Commercial development will be approved only when compatible with existing and proposed land uses and with existing and programmed public services and facilities. The applicant provided an MCP, which will be compliant with the open space requirements and landscape buffer requirements established in LDC sections 10-415A and 416D. The proposed project abuts North Tamiami Trail and North Cleveland Avenue, which are state-maintained roads, and Littleton Road, which is a county-maintained road. The TIS provided by the applicant and the DOT memo analyzed the request based on the build-out year being 2030, and it has determined that the surrounding roadway systems and the proposed project's entrances are anticipated to operate at or better than the adopted level of service standard for the project's build-out year. So staff finds this request as conditioned, consistent with these lead plan goal, objective, and policies. The applicant had covered lead plan policy 6.1.7, and staff is in agreement with that. To touch on this lead plan goal and policies, lead plan goal 135 aims to meet housing needs by providing decent, safe, and sanitary housing in suitable neighborhoods at affordable cost to meet the needs of the present and future residents of the county. Lead plan policies 135.1.9 and 158.1.9 establish that the county will ensure a mix of residential types and designs on a county-wide basis by providing for a wide variety of allowable housing densities and types through the plan development process and a sufficiently flexible future land use map. Additionally, in response to current and projected needs of Lee County residents, Lee County will encourage a diverse mix of housing elements, types, sizes, prices, and rents by maintaining mixed-use land categories. The proposed development will provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing in a suitable neighborhood to help meet the needs of the present and future residents of Lee County by providing a wide range of dwelling unit types. And staff finds this consistent with lead plan goal 135 and policies 135.1.9 and 158.1.9. Staff is in agreement with the applicant's testimony on lead plan policy 30.2.4. As for lead plan policy 30.2.6, it permits development within the neighborhood center to utilize the development standards allowed within the mixed-use overlay. The applicant is utilizing the mixed-use overlay open space requirements consistent with this policy. However, it will only be applied to the northern portion, which falls within the neighborhood center. Lead plan policy 30.2.8 prohibits detrimental uses within the Norfolk Myers community plan area. The applicant is not proposing any uses that would be classified as detrimental use, so therefore staff finds this consistent with these lead plan policies. Staff is in agreement with the applicant's testimony for lead plan standards 4.1.1 and 4.1.2. In any case where there exists or there is the probability of environmentally sensitive areas, the developer or applicant must prepare an environmental assessment that examines the existing conditions, addresses existing or anticipated environmental problems, and proposes means and mechanisms to protect, conserve, or preserve the environmental and natural resources. This assessment should also ensure that land uses and structures are well integrated, properly oriented, and functionally related to the natural features of the site, and minimizes the need for expansion and construction of street and utility improvements as set forth in lead plan standard 4.1.4. The applicant has already provided a testimony on lead plan goal 125 and objective 125.1, and staff is in agreement with their testimony, and staff also agrees that their testimony does apply to standard 4.1.4 and meets it. Staff is in agreement with the applicant's testimony on lead plan policy 77.3.2 and lead plan policy 123.1.1. In addition to the analysis of lead plan objective 125.1 that was provided in the applicant's testimony, goal 125 of the lead plan ensures that water quality is maintained or improved for the protection of the environment and people of Lee County. Lead plan policy 123.2.10 requires that development adjacent to aquatic and other nature preserves, wildlife refuges, and recreation areas be designed to protect the natural character and public investment in these areas. Policy 125.1.2 also requires new development to not degrade surface water quality. Additionally, lead plan policy 125.1.3 establishes the design, construction, and maintenance of artificial drainage systems must provide for retention or detention areas and vegetated swale systems. Lastly, policy 125.1.4 requires developments that have the potential of lowering existing water quality below state and federal water standards to provide standardized appropriate monitoring data. The proposed developments will meet the landscape buffer requirements, and the proposed modification of deviation 8, should it be approved, will provide on-site protection in addition to the existing 7-acre on-site preservation area within the conservation easement. The ERP that was issued through the Southwest Florida Water Management District indicates that water quality will not be degraded by meeting the water treatment requirements through the ERP. A modification to the permit will be required and submitted for the revised development program to ensure water treatment requirements will still be met. Additionally, the MCP includes lakes that will serve as retention ponds for the drainage system, which are one of the accepted methods from the Water Management District to minimize nutrient loading and pollution discharges from development. The state of Florida requires that nutrient loading discharges will have to be met by water management design for the Southwest Florida Water Management District to issue a modification to the existing permit. As previously mentioned, the subject properties are within the Norfolk Myers Community Plan area. LDC section 33-1532 establishes that properties within the Norfolk Myers Community Plan area must conduct one publicly advertised information session prior to obtaining approval or finding of sufficiency of a plan development zoning action. The applicant has provided a community meeting summary that meets the requirements as set forth in LDC section 33-1532B. The majority of the proposed uses for both plan developments are permitted by right as set forth in LDC section 34-934. However, as previously mentioned, the proposed schedule of uses for the commercial plan development includes industrial uses that are not already permitted by right within the commercial plan development, which may be permitted by the Board of County Commissioners, provided the requirements of LDC section 34-938 are met, and the applicant has met these requirements. The proposed property development regulations for both developments meet LDC section 34-935, and the applicant is also proposing special conditions for specific uses to further protect the public health, safety, and welfare. LDC sections 10-415 and 10-416 establish the minimum requirements for landscape buffering, open space, and adjacent open space. The applicant has provided a breakdown of the applicable open space requirements, which are utilizing the mixed-use overlay standards through the Norfolk Myers Neighborhood Center 3. This allows for a reduction in open space requirements. However, this reduction cannot be applied to the entire project, as only portions of the planned development are within the neighborhood center. The applicant has shown on both the narrative and the MCP that portions of this development will be utilizing this reduction in line with the standards of LDC section 10-425. The landscape buffers for the commercial plan development is a type D buffer to the north along Littleton Road, a type CF buffer along the southern perimeter between the development and the residential development.
So when you say type C/F, do you mean they have the option of doing a C or an F? What does that mean?
It's an either or situation. To the east, there will be also either a type C or F buffer along the western side of the commercial lake, as shown on the screen. And as previously mentioned, this will allow for the residential community to enjoy a waterfront view and allow for the maintenance to be done on this landscape buffer. And staff is also in agreement that the condition definitely needed rewording. Lastly, a type A buffer will be required along the western perimeter of this development. For the residential plan development, the type D buffer to the north along Littleton Road is an enhanced type A buffer along, type D buffer to the north along Littleton Road for the residential plan development, and then there's an enhanced type A buffer along the northeast abutting the FDOT pond, and a type D buffer along the southern perimeter that abuts San Jose Street. Should deviation 8 be approved, to the south, a modified type B buffer where 5 trees per 100 linear feet is required, where the preserve is less than 100 feet in width. The remainder of the southern perimeter of the residential development, which abuts a recreation center and a commercial lot, will require a type B buffer. To the east, which abuts North Tamiami Trail, will require a type D buffer. To the west, some portions of the development abut lots zoned commercial and commercial plan development and require a type B buffer. The portion of the development that abuts North Cleveland Avenue will require a type D buffer. Staff won't go into detail on this, but staff is in agreement with the analysis the applicant provided on their design influence map and is in agreement that it is compatible with existing and planned uses in the surrounding area. As provided before, the MCP indicates that access to the commercial plan development is provided via 3 access connections to Littleton Road, which connects to North Cleveland Avenue and North Tamiami Trail. Access to the residential plan development is proposed via 2 access connections, one on North Cleveland Avenue and one on North Tamiami Trail. As previously mentioned, the only road that is currently maintained is Littleton Road, which only connects to the commercial plan development. The 2 developments will not interconnect and will be separated by code-required buffers and infrastructure. And staff finds that there is sufficient access to support the proposed development. A traffic impact statement was provided by the applicant, and infrastructure planning has reviewed the proposed request and has provided a memo. The DOT memo, it states that the review follows the Administrative Code 1317 Traffic Study Guidelines for Planned Development Rezonings, which states that a significant impact is categorized by a 10% or greater increase in the total peak hour intersection volume, sum of all 4 approaches upon project completion. Based off their review, based off the roadway and intersection level of service analysis, North Cleveland Avenue, Littleton Road, and proposed project's entrances are anticipated to operate at or better than the operated level of service standard in the project's build-out year, which is 2030. North Cleveland Avenue and North Tamiami Trail are maintained by the state of Florida, and the proposed accesses on these roadways are subject to the approval of FDOT. However, Lee County Department of Transportation has no objections to the access points on Littleton Road. The applicant has provided an environmental report, a flux map, and environmental staff has provided a memo providing an analysis on the proposed project and the current site conditions. As previously mentioned, the site has been cleared through a development order issued in 2007 and vegetation permits. The applicant has noted that a modification to the existing ERP will be submitted to reflect the new development proposed in this request. Natural Resources staff has provided a memo that establishes that a portion of the project falls within the 660-foot radius of Bald Eagle Nest LE124, which was in a cell tower on the north side of Littleton Road. This nest came down following in the 22-23 nesting season and has not been rebuilt. The nest has not met the abandoned or lost definitions outlined in LDC section 14-112. And as a result, any improvements within the 660-foot radius must obtain a Lee County Board of County Commissioners approved Bald Eagle Management Plan per LDC section 14-119C. On October 14th, 2025, the Eagle Technical Advisory Committee voted to recommend approval of the Bald Eagle Management Plan dated October 2025, and the approved Bald Eagle Management Plan will ensure that future development is consistent with LDC section 14-119C.
Okay, so this project's developer applied to modify the existing management plan,
That is correct.
and those modifications were accepted by the Eagle Committee.
That is correct.
Okay, so as long as they developed in compliance with that plan, that's fine. But there's no condition on that.
No, not to staff's recollection. I
Okay,
don't believe so.
thank you.
As previously discussed, the site will be adequately served by urban services and letters of availability have been provided. With regard to the capacity concerns for middle school with the Lee County School District, as previously mentioned, mitigation options will be discussed at the time of development order pursuant to LDC section 2-46J. The proposed uses for both the RPD and CPD are appropriate within the subject property, given the consistency with the Lee Plan policies for the central urban future land use category. The recommended conditions of approval and land development code further help provide compatibility with the surrounding area. Staff finds the proposed conditions appropriate for approval, and as conditioned, the public's interests are sufficiently addressed, and the proposed deviations will enhance the achievement of the objectives of the plan development and will preserve and promote the general intent of the code to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And based upon analysis of the application, the requested rezoning from the C2 and C1A zoning districts to commercial plan development and residential plan development, as conditioned, is compatible with the existing and planned uses in the surrounding area and will provide sufficient access to support the proposed development and density. Existing planned uses in the surrounding area and provide sufficient access to support the proposed development, density, and intensity. The request will not have a detrimental impact on the surrounding roadway system or any adversely affect on environmentally critical or sensitive areas and natural resources. The site will be adequately served by urban services as defined in the LEED plan. The proposed mix of uses are appropriate at the proposed location, and the conditions recommended by staff provide sufficient safeguards for the public interest. Therefore, staff finds the request, as conditioned, meets the criteria for a rezone request pursuant to Land Development Code section 34-145 and recommends approval of the request with conditions. That concludes today's presentation from staff. Staff is available if you have any other questions.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'm going to open up the floor for members of the public that wish to speak. I have Thomas Morgado.
You got it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Can we have an aerial up or site plan?
Yeah, the access points would be great. Oh, that's great. That'll work. My name's Thomas Morgado. I am the pastor of the church where you see RS1 located in the north part there. I am also an advisor for Lee County's Park and Rec. So, I want to say great presentation. I'm excited. 2030 sounds like too far away. Let's go. All the things you guys are saying is great when it comes to the issue we have with people who are using this illegally. I think this is going to be a solution to that. I also think there's going to be a solution to the way a lot of dirt bikes and four-wheelers go through this area legally as well. So I'm excited for that to end. But I do want to talk about these access points as the pastor of the church. Before Hurricane Ian, we had a school that was functioning in our building, and then we lost the roof of our largest space that the school would use. We lost that roof. We couldn't have that school anymore, so unfortunately we had them move. Now, with that being said, the traffic, as we're pursuing the school again, and actually we're going to use our whole building because we're going to put in a fire suppression system that's going to cost over $200,000, which the church has already voted on to install. It's going to have our parking lot full a lot more, which excites us because we want more people to live in our area. We love that. We think people are a blessing, and we want them to know Jesus. So right now what you're seeing is if a person is going to go into this development, they're going to have to make a U-turn if they're coming in from this side here, heading north on Tamiami Trail. And then they're going to make that U-turn and come on in. Now, if you see where the North Fort Myers Rec Center is, they have their own left turn with a deceleration lane, which is excellent. Doesn't cause any traffic at that U-turn that's going to have to happen. The same case is going to be happening on the other side on US 41. Folks who are going to want to come into that entrance will have to make a U-turn over here to then go into that to make a right turn. So those are the issues that I see here. The other thing is the entrance point on the north. That's going to be designated specifically for the commercial use. So one of the recommendations I would have with these concerns is either that entrance be one entrance that allows for residents to turn left, which would bring safety concerns to this Littleton Road intersection with North Tamiami, as well as on the other entrance, if we could have a left-hand deceleration lane and an entrance. I know that's Department of Transportation, but that would be great. You know, one of the things that when I moved to this area 4 years ago, I moved from Broward County. I love Broward County, and Broward County has highways. Lee County failed when it came to developing highways. Except, wait a second, those are our highways right there. Our north-south highways that are located in the middle of that area, crossing Bayshore, which is a major state road, which is the same as Bayshore is Pine Island. We're missing the ability to move quickly. And so I think that as we're thinking through the development of this area, we need to seriously consider not having just U-turns for folks to then come in using a right turn, but instead a deceleration lane where they can make left turns on both ends of this property, or perhaps an entrance on the north side, basically where the church is at and the commercial proposals being made.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Oh yeah, I wanted to say the bald eagle. Also want to speak towards the environmental issue that you guys have done a great job, and that's true. What's being said. I haven't seen that eagle essentially after the months with Hurricane Ian. And then I also want to speak towards the North Fort Myers Rec Center as an advisor. The greatest issue that I fear here is, and it's named the tortoise frisbee golf because of the tortoises. The greatest issue that I fear here, and this is also, I mean, it's going to be a blessing. When this neighborhood comes in, we're no longer going to have the dirt bikes. We're no longer going to have all these four-wheelers. That's the worst thing for the preserve and they come into this area on the north part. That's the critical area right there where the tortoises are. And so I'm excited for that to be gone. However, what I do fear is that residents love to walk in what they think is a walking preserve when it's actually a frisbee golf area. And frisbee golf, even though it's very safe, if you've got people walking through not paying attention, putting on their headphones for a morning walk, they're going to be causing issues with that area. So I'm not sure what the buffers are exactly that you guys have planned. If that's a fence, then that'd be great. I would prefer for residents of that area to be able to come in and use it just like anyone else, parking in the lot and then walking through. I think that's going to present that, you know, that desire that I think is tempting for folks to just maybe jump a bush, come on in, walk through with their headphones and get hit by a frisbee. So with that being said, that's everything I have to share.
Thank you for coming in. All right, we're back to the parties. Does anyone want to make some concluding remarks?
I think we want to put some rebuttal testimony on.
Drew?
For the record, Drew Fitzgerald. So there, we have submitted for the FDOT driveway connection permits. So on Business 41, there is a directional left that's being put into or being added into the median that'll give access to the main entrance off of Business 41. And then on US 41, we have a right turn lane into the entrance. We were not able to get an opening to allow for the traffic to turn left out of there. But the predominant traffic patterns are not heading north, they're generally heading south.
So someone leaving the project on US 41 wanting to head south would go north to the light at Littleton and make a U-turn?
Or go to Business 41 and head south on
Okay.
Business 41.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer's going to address school concurrency, and while she's walking up there, I just want to say there has been some ongoing discussions about what's in the LEAP plan, and the school district doesn't like, as I understand it, the methodology that's in the LEAP plan. However, there is an interlocal agreement that was executed. Madam Hearing Examiner reviewed that because her signature is on that. And so there's two things in regard to, and there may be more, but I'm going to just address two. One is,
And this is really a development order issue, but go ahead, put it on.
well, but I don't want to get stuck with the misinterpretation in the record, so I just want to clarify it. The way they evaluate concurrency is the school district just wants to look at one zone, but the interlocal and the comp plan is written in a way that you can look at adjoining zones when you determine capacity. They're not doing that. The other thing is they're looking at where they are now, and under the interlocal and the comp plan, they're supposed to look at the long-range plan, and there's a table 3B that has their capital improvement program. So what we don't want to do is have a misinterpretation of what's actually adopted at the time of DO.
Thank you. I did hand to you a couple more slides. Really, I just want to go over this school concurrency slide. So the school availability letter for the middle school, the page 2 of the letter for middle school cites zone CC. So that is a different map. Last year when they did their review, they used the same map as what this map is, map 4D of the comprehensive plan. This year they're using this CC. They've created their own map. So the LEAD plan allows them to use their own map. Policy 68, the bottom one here, 68.1.3 says that the district can change their boundaries, but that's only for their internal review. The map you're supposed to use is this map 4D. And this map here, we would be within this west zone. And in that case, there's several middle schools there. So by limiting their review to only CC is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, which requires map 4D. Additionally, the comp plan even states that the school will be required to do a comprehensive plan amendment if they want to not use this map. So unless they do a comprehensive plan amendment prior to the development order, the school concurrency will be reviewed on the west zone and not this other CC map.
And beyond that, because of, I think it's Senate Bill 380, the county is not allowed to adopt more stringent regulations or moratoriums until a certain longer period of time after the last hurricane. So the county can't change it even if they want to right now.
Okay, thank you.
And I did want to address the concerns about the Frisbee golf. When we had our community meeting, you mentioned that concern before, and I hadn't thought of that before, and I didn't know what to think and how to respond. Since that time, I started thinking about it. We do residential developments near golf courses all the time, and usually they're very small balls that are harder to see. And residences are up against those with little protection. So I would say it's similar to that. I do understand your concern, and that possibly might be something that the developer, might talk to with their residents. But it's, from way I view it, from a safety standpoint, it is very similar to any other golf course development would be. The budding uses, it's enter at your own risk. And I would think that it's easier to see a Frisbee coming than a little small white ball. That's all I had. Do you have any questions for
I do
the
not,
team?
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm not going to leave the record open for any further submittals, so we're closing out testimony and evidence. And I thank everyone. I felt well prepared for this case. I am going to go back out there. A couple of things I heard today got my interest, and I have a case or two ahead of this one, so I won't be getting to it immediately. So I'd say count on 2 to 3 weeks before I release my recommendation to the board, and then you'll be notified of when the final board hearing is after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.